Hey guys, it's Chen. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll know that I just got back from Singapore late last week, so there are a lot of news items to catch up on. First, let's talk about one of the most, deliciously controversial stories from last week. So the New York Times published an article on bubble tea, which I absolutely applaud because bubble tea is awesome and more people should be talking about it. And if you haven't tried it yet, you really need to. But anyway, the New York Times did a story on bubble tea, but the title was kind of weird. It said the blobs in your tea, they're supposed to be there. Okay, so the blobs they're so eloquently referring to are probably the tapioca pearls, the deliciously chewy, slightly sweet, gelatinous soul of the bubble tea. But yeah, blobs just as good. Then it goes on to say, complicated beverage trends have to begin somewhere. Remember the first time you went to a Starbucks and had no idea what to do? These days, bubble tea, an Asian import, seems to be going through the same consumer learning curve as entrepreneurs bring their exotic menus to malls and big American cities. Wait a minute. So bubble tea is confusing? Like what? Like calculus confusing? What is the level of confusion here? I mean, it's a bunch of tapioca balls in a cup of tea. Granted, you might not know what they call the blobs are, but it's a drink with a straw. I mean, that's pretty straightforward. It even has the word tea in his name. So it's not exactly a Rubik's Cube. But in all seriousness, I 100% do get that. There are people who have never had bubble tea before, and this is really new to them, but I just don't really get calling it confusing. Then the article said that this item became a hit in Taiwan and subsequently embraced throughout the Far East. I'm sorry, did Marco Polo somehow discover the fountain of youth is now working for the New York Times? At the Far East, I'm just picturing sailboats and pirates right now. And I really tried to see both sides of this because I get it. Even though bubble tea has been extremely popular for decades, there are of course a lot of people who have never had it. Even for me, I've never heard of bubble tea until 12 to 15 years ago. When I was traveling in Taiwan, I was with my Taiwanese friend and she asked me, do you want a bubble tea? And I asked her, a bubble what? And she was shocked, can't believe I never heard of it. And when I tried it for the first time, it was love at first sip. So I do 100% get that there are many people who may not be familiar with it. But with that said, for a publication like the New York Times, especially, being in New York where bubble tea is basically everywhere and has been everywhere for a long time, and then to publish an article basically sort of, dare I say, Columbusing bubble tea is just an indication of how much the New York Times really needs an Asian friend. And yes, the New York Times, if you're watching, I'll gladly be that Asian friend for you and help you discover other things like hot pot and dim sum, other stuff from the Far East. And here's the thing, if the New York Times had an Asian friend, they would take one look at that article and just be like, yeah, you can't print that. I mean, I'm glad you found bubble tea, that's all good, but you can't print this article. Of course, after the backlash, the article was revised and now the headline reads, bubble tea purveyors continue to grow along with drink's popularity. And Ellen Pollack, the business editor, has responded and said, we published a feature article on Thursday about bubble tea becoming mainstream, which drew criticism from readers on two fronts. Some thought that the article read as though we had just discovered bubble tea. In fact, the Times published an article in December proclaiming bubble tea so 2002. So what, did you guys forget you published that? So basically they're just saying, no, we didn't proclaim we discovered bubble tea. We mentioned like half a year ago that bubble tea was just so passé, we just forgot. Anyway, I thought the story was interesting and wanted to put in my 2 cents. Thank you all so much for watching. See you later.